Welcome to Empire State of Cannabis, New York's #1 podcast for the cannabis industry. Kaylin Castetter here today with Eddie Brennan again, second time.
Back at it again.
About a year in between. Eddie is the CEO of Beacon Skiff. You might know it as 1911, which is an excellent brand of alcohol, hard cider, and liquor products. Eddie, I'll let you kind of explain a little bit about Beacon Skiff in 1911.
Sure, yeah. So Beacon Skiff founded in 1911. We're over 100 years in business here at Beacon Skiff. So literally we're sitting in the middle of our 1,000-acre apple orchard today on location. So if we hear some bottles smashing in the background, it's all part of the experience here today. We're sitting upstairs in production, but it's been in my family for 5 generations.
Wow.
So we started as a farm and really vertically integrated all the way up to hard cider and now into the cannabis business. And today we sit a week out from apple picking, which is always an exciting time here.
Yep. Yeah, and so we're on location now. We've been doing a lot of these live interviews for Empire State of Cannabis. So if you're just listening on the podcast apps, check out YouTube and Facebook, where we do post the videos, post a bunch of great clips too. So behind us, actually, we've got a whole selection of 1911's line. You've got, I'm seeing some gin, vodka, some bourbon, right?
Absolutely.
Or whiskey. And then you also have got your cocktails in a can, cold brew coffee in a can, and then cider. How many different ciders do you guys make?
So on the hard cider side, we have over 15 flavors, and always.
Wow.
We met in this room about a week ago and talking about 2022, and there's always big battles on what do we keep, what goes away, and there's so many great flavors out there. So yeah, we rotate about 15 different flavors, although our biggest flavor we ever release is cider donut, and that comes out this week. So an exciting week here, and we literally created the taste profile of a cider donut, put it into a hard cider, which is it was a big success for us.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like it's it doesn't seem like that's your favorite flavor, Eddie, anyways, as you talk about cider donut here.
A little sweet, it's a novelty. It's like the pumpkin equivalent in the craft beer world.
Gotcha,
so great for one, but you wouldn't want to drink 3 of them at a time, I would say.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're a week away from Apple. So we're recording this episode on August 16th, so mid-August. You're a week away from apple picking season. Describe to us the scene that is Beacon Skiff Apple Orchards. A lot of listeners from downstate probably never been here before.
Yeah, but, we like to think of ourselves as like the Walt Disney World for apple picking.
Right.
So you literally can come here, get on a wagon, pick from 15 different varieties of apples. There's literally a variety for everyone. You can come with your kids, but you could also come with friends and see a concert, or you could come and sit in our tasting room. Your kids could ride a pony. There's literally something for everyone. And really that's what it's all about here, is family fun. And in the beginning, we were always worried about, could we integrate alcohol with the family experience? And over the years, it's really worked well together.
Yeah.
But for us, it all goes back to the apple. The apple is the beginning, the end-all, be-all of everything we do here. Is the apple business. So vertical integration is key, and everything is about apples. And actually, we're in the running again for the #1 apple orchard in America.
Oh, wow.
So USA Today has voted us the #1 apple orchard in America the last 2 years.
Wow.
So we're in the running again, and we're excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, and, a little context, we're in Lafayette, New York, which is apple country, right?
Right.
And there's apple orchards all over the place when you're driving up here.
Yeah, and it's my great-great-grandfather started the business, and to be able to carry on the legacy is exciting. And I think if they saw where we were today, they'd be proud, but also a little bit perplexed of where we ended up. So we did what we needed to do to survive. And you never know when you're going to get a bad crop. And, this year, luckily, we have a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's exciting. So, how many people do you see a year, you think, that come to we would call it the Apple Hills?
Right. So we see around 300,000 people. So anywhere from 300,000 to 350,000 people, but it's really condensed in like a 6 to 8 week time period.
Yep.
So definitely a lot of concerns around COVID and just creating a safe environment. Luckily, most of our attractions are outside.
Yeah.
So, we don't have too much indoor experiences.
Yep. So it's interesting because, you're big. 300,000 people is a lot.
Right.
We're sitting here in one of your packing facilities where we also do a lot of co-packing and You've really kind of scaled this business. When did you take over as CEO?
So I've been back from New York City about 8 years,
Okay.
and in this role now going on 5 years.
Okay. So, since then, we've really seen, Beacon Skiff and 1911 brand really scale, but it's almost the quintessential craft beverage brand, right? And
Right.
at its core, I think craft means a lot. So, why do you think, and really what we've seen over the past 5 years, the past decade, is craft brands become all the rage, right?
Right.
And everything is about, being able to buy craft and, these small breweries and cideries, the seltzers, right? So what do you think really has fueled this kind of explosion of interest in craft brands or the craft
Right.
culture around alcohol?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, for us and for most brands, it goes back to authenticity. So having that story that people can really put their, really see, understand. So like for a brand like us, it goes back to being 100% fresh.
Okay.
So literally using the apples that we grow in our orchard in our final product, being able to control everything from the moment we plant that apple tree in the ground till it's harvested. It's literally pressed in our facility, transported to our hard cider facility. We ferment that, we filter it, and then we can it. And we literally control every step along the way. So I think customers appreciate that, and they're willing to pay a premium for that. So for us, really telling our customers, why are we different than an Angry Orchard, another brand you're gonna find out there. And for us, if you look back 15 years ago, fresh cider was our main business, which has really become a commodity.
Non-alcoholic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and become commoditized. So that's the death spiral in some of these businesses. You get caught in a product that really gets commoditized, and I think
Yeah.
we saw that in the hemp space
Yeah.
to some degree as well. So, there's a lot of elasticity when you have brand recognition and people who come to know your product and love your product for what it is, for the innovative flavors and the differentiating points about your brand.
Yeah. And how much do you think is people going home and when they open a can of 1911 relating it to the experience that they had when they came apple picking with their family that fall?
Right. Well, I think there's data that supports if somebody comes to your tasting room,
Yeah.
They're 4 times more likely to purchase
Wow.
your product
That makes
when they
sense.
go into a grocery store. But we're also seeing, we were able to build a loyal fan base in our backyard. We call it own your 50-mile radius from here, which we were able to do. And now being in Massachusetts or even down to Florida, developed that consumer loyalty. And really what they're seeing is a brand that jumps off the shelf with them. So innovative design. But then when they crack that can, drinking it and realizing, there is a major difference between a concentrate and a fresh product.
Yeah.
And that's what we hang our hat on is literally we pick it from the tree or we store it and it's pressed the same day and then it goes into a fermentation tank. There's no time in between. We're not getting concentrate from China.
Yeah.
And we're controlling the process. I think the consumers nowadays are willing to pay more to ensure that there's quality and consistency and
Yeah.
transparency.
Gotcha. And so you're going into the cannabis business. We're already in the cannabis industry
Right.
and the hemp side. And I think our last episode last year, you kind of talked a little more about, what you've done, but, decent infrastructure there that you've built up on the hemp side. You now have a CBD seltzer that's out in Wegmans.
Right.
Right. And in a lot of different stores. So, it's really kind of grown for you and the plans come together. But as you move over to the cannabis industry and you look at the 300,000 people that come here, the hundreds of thousands of people that drink your cider and whatnot, what kind of lessons can you take from your experience in the cider business that's going to help you avoid pitfalls and to develop a brand in adult use cannabis that's going to have staying power and the same kind of stickiness that your brand here does?
Right, absolutely. Well, it goes back to the vertical integration and people experiencing your brand at the point where it's produced. I think that means a lot to people. So as we look at the adult use market, the possibility of that vertical integration is important for customers to come and see and touch your brand.
Yeah.
But for us, we've had a lot of learnings in being in the hemp space. Is that we saw a lot of people flood into the market for the wrong reasons, and at the end of the day, you've really got to have a purpose and a reason why you want to be in a business. And for us, everything we do goes back to our consumer. So whether it's planning a concert for 4,000 people or planning a 100-person tasting dinner, it all goes back to what is our customer looking for? How can we serve that customer and make sure they don't just take our product off the shelf once or come once, but we get that repeat visit. And for us in the cannabis space, we have to have a point of differentiation. There's going to be so many people flooding into the market.
Yeah.
And for us, we have to have that real point of difference. And for us, we hope that's the vertical integration, the quality, the consistency of having a product that is quality.
So, you talked about the big allure to what you're doing is that there's something for everyone, right? It's a family experience. And so is there a sense of anxiety or worry that those loyal customers that are bringing their families here are going to be put off by the fact that you're selling cannabis, or that you have a cannabis brand or associated with cannabis in any way?
Yeah, that's a great question, one we talk about a lot here. And I think originally when we were getting started in 1911, we actually located our winery down the hill. So our main corporate offices now are where our winery used to be. And that was the thought, is that there was really some issues with having an alcohol brand with a family experience. And what we found is that families do come apple picking, but they're also willing to come in and have a glass of wine or have a glass of hard cider. But your point on the stigmatization of cannabis resonates deeply with me, and it's unbelievable to me how stigmatized the cannabis plant has become. The power of this plant to do so much good in the world.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about it last time, but what's happened in the pharmaceutical industry, when you see what's happened with opioids and just the pandemic really that's been caused that we've been talking about. For us, we hope that we can bring some clarity and some understanding to educate some of our customers on the benefits of cannabis, and try to break some of these cycles of people thinking cannabis is so bad. And we get comments all the time about in our CBD business, like, I can't believe you've gotten into this. You would stoop this low to get into this type of business. And I think it's just only a matter of time for us to continue to educate people. So I think there is some concern, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to education and really getting our customers comfortable with the brand. And will we locate it directly next to Apple Hill? Probably not. But I think ultimately there's hope that it can all be commingled.
So when you talk about stigmatization, right? I think it's a really key point, because alcohol is a drug. It affects people and how they act and how they interact with other people. Same as cannabis, right? So this question of why is it looked at differently? How important do you think it is for you as a CEO of a trusted brand, one of the most well-known brands in the region, to push back on that stigma and to be part of the destigmatization process? I
think it's everything, and it really starts with me smoking every day. I use it really myself as medicine, and it's more of a microdosing on my end, but really seeing so many benefits from it in that, I actually don't consume a lot of alcohol. I haven't seen a lot of benefits from drinking alcohol consistently. I don't physically feel better. It doesn't add a lot to my lifestyle. But when I use cannabis, I see amazing effects in my cognitive abilities, in my sleep, reduction of anxiety, so many benefits that people, talk about. And I think me being a president of a multi-million-dollar company and overseeing hundreds of employees, it is saying I use cannabis. And, I'm not taking it at work necessarily, but I use it when I get home, and I see great benefits from it. So, as we go back to opioids and what's happening with that crisis in the United States, why are we prescribing opioids for people who go to the dentist and get a tooth pulled and send them home with 100 Percocet? Why can't we prescribe them cannabis? Go home and have some cannabis, and you're going to get the pain reduction, the anxiety reduction, you're going to sleep better. But for some reason, whether it's monetary or, there's all these governmental boundaries, it's just not happening. So if we can be a positive force in New York State and push the rhetoric forward, I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And so we talked a little bit about your distribution, right? And, you said you have to dominate the 50 miles around your operation, right? Which is Syracuse, Cortland, right? Central New York, we'll call it, right?
Right.
But you also sell a lot of cider in Massachusetts, and now sell in Rhode Island, I saw.
Right.
And you said all the way down to Florida. There's this idea that, upstate will benefit from legalization because we're going to see, the ability for upstate growers and producers to sell into downstate. Now, you talk about how important it is for someone to come visit your tasting room, right? Four
Right.
times more likely than and buy it off premise. How have you seen the ability to penetrate a downstate market with a craft-focused upstate brand? Have you seen it to be difficult, or do you see that consumers are, open arms to upstate brands, are going to buy it in volume, and do you think that, all you have to do is really create a good product, or do you think there's a lot more to it to get downstate, and there's going to be some challenges for cannabis producers?
Yeah, I mean, great point. I think it's going to be extremely challenging. I think if I look back at 1911 and breaking into New York City, how challenging it was, whether we were doing ride-alongs with distributors or different events in key bars in the region. It was one of the most challenging things we did is to try to break into a city where there's so many brands. The challenge cannabis brands are going to have, and we see within CBD is, we can't use Facebook marketing. We can't use the social tactics that a lot of other brands can use, and that's going to be a challenge as we move forward, and how we really relate to those downstate customers. At the end of the day, the ticket to entry is going to be quality and consistency. It's not going to be, it's not going to determine your success. You're just going to have that. Same in the craft beverage industry. Quality and consistency is important, but at the end of the day, you have to have a great brand.
Yeah.
You have to have all the intangibles. So it's gonna be a challenge, and it's also going to come down to how valuable are the licenses that are issued. Does it go the way of hemp, where there's the market gets flooded, and at the end of the day, there's too much competition out there. So I think that a brand in upstate New York has a chance, but it's always going to be a battle.
It's going to be tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, what you've been able to do here, I think, has a lot to do with what the state did with alcohol, the early part of last decade.
Right.
The modernization, the ability for craft, we call it craft, farm winery, farm brewery license, right? These special licenses. So how much do you think your success is tied to the regulatory structure of alcohol, and specifically the fact that New York State came in and changed a lot of the structures around regulations and alcohol?
Right. Well, I would go as far as say it saved our family business.
Oh.
So completely, if you look back 8 years ago, New York had the most devastating crop ever, lost 90% of all the apples
Wow.
on our farm. And at the time, we weren't diversified. We weren't ready to be able to go into another category. And ultimately, we almost lost the entire business. And that was the wake-up call. And at the same time, Governor Cuomo's legislation, the craft distillery, craft brewery, and craft cidery licenses were coming out. And my family then came back into the business and really realized we really needed to learn how to vertically integrate. And that allowed us to escape this commoditized market of apples, where you're getting competition from China, you're getting competition from the West Coast, and really create a brand in 1911 that customers could understand meant quality, but also was 100% fresh, and allowed us to break out of this just selling apples to a packing
Sure.
house. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, if you don't control your own processing and have a brand, the farmer's the first one to get screwed. And we are first and foremost a farm here, so I can speak to that. And we are a hemp grower as well, and we've grown other crops. And it's a challenging business, so you've got to really be able to control that middle tier to have success. But the regulatory and the way it was structured in New York was so important to allow craft operators to not only participate in the market, but also to thrive and allow us to go direct to the customers. So before we ever had a distributor in the 1911 brand, we self-distributed. We went directly into bars and restaurants, told our story, and that meant a lot. But I would say there's a lot of lessons we can learn from what happened in the craft beverage industry and the successes in New York State that can be applied to cannabis. And I hope we learn those lessons. I mean, it's right there for the taking.
Well, are you nervous that the state won't allow for that kind of flexibility and that kind of focus on small family businesses and craft businesses? I mean, listen, that's the intent, I think, right? But in the execution, the regulations could go the other way. Right.
Absolutely.
And are you worried about that?
Yeah, I think one of the worst things that could happen is the state be dominated by 4 to 5 brands. And like you said before, instead of creating 1,000 millionaires, we create a few billionaires. And at the end of the day, I think the New York consumer cares about craft brands. They care about those family stories. And at the end of the day, they'll support them. But if the structure is developed in such a way where the multi-state operators can come in and completely dominate, I don't know that everyone will have a shot. I'm hopeful, and if you look at the way the regulations are proposed right now, there's certainly a chance. I think the micro licenses are really exciting in that small family businesses could vertically integrate and go directly to their customer. And I'm hopeful that happens. The other thing is, we've got to get the Office of Cannabis Management. We've got to get this board put together.
Yeah,
it's so important that we get moving, or we're gonna get passed over by other states.
Other states. And how much does that uncertainty go into play? I mean, you have a very successful existing business here, right?
Right.
But even so, I mean, you can't wait forever, right? And you have to start making plans.
Right.
And so how much does that uncertainty really kind of, you think, put yourself at a disadvantage when it comes to these, big, the ROs, the multi-state operators?
Right. Well, the uncertainty is challenging.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is Prohibition 2.0. We're right on the cusp of it. And I think, with Kathy Hochul coming in, I think this is a positive sign. I think it'd be a great win for her to get this board sat. Let's get the executive director in place, and let's follow the regulations that are already drafted and ready to go. I think there's a real possibility that in the spring of next year, people could be growing. And if you look at the infrastructure that's already been created in the state by the hemp licenses, there's multiple extractors that are already set up, that have the expertise, that have the certifications in place. I mean, New York has some of the strictest rules in place of any state in the country.
Yep.
They're ready to go. I mean, with a flip of a switch, we could have a vibrant industry up and running.
Yep.
That allows for social equity, that allows for all of the things we're hoping to do and create a vibrant industry. It's ready, and it's ready to happen now. I think obviously we're anxious to get going.
Yep.
But we're patient. We'll be patient.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is going to be built overnight anyways,
Right.
And entrepreneurs need the time to kind of, develop. And that's why at least some sort of progress is necessary, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, you see some kind of process. The board being appointed, the OCM being created, that would be a great first step. In terms of like your community, I mean, we're out here, Eddie. I mean, it's, you can see Syracuse from here, but it's out in sticks. You're in Apple Valley. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I know we've seen, a neighboring municipality, Lafayette, opt out. Are you worried that your community here is going to say that they don't want you, they don't want your business when it comes to cannabis? And if they do, what do you do? What do you say to that?
I think we're hopeful that they see what we've already created here and the importance of Beacon's gift to our community. And we've done a lot over the years to really assert our position in the community in terms of doing lots of charitable efforts. But I only see it as a positive. I don't see a lot of downside to a company using a Beacon's gift, for example, getting into cannabis. I only see it as a good thing. If not us, who? And people will get into it. So I'm hopeful, and at the end of the day, we'll fight for it. And it all goes back to education and educating them on why it's important, why we should be doing it, why allow alcohol and not cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so Eddie, apple picking starts, you say, a week, and that's your busy season?
Yeah.
So do you have any low-key plans for the next week? Or the state fair starting
So state fair kicks off on Friday.
Wow.
We had a big concert last Friday. We had the Wood Brothers here. So always trying to create excitement. For me, apple picking's exciting. It's not a ton of work. It's great to see our customers come through the gates with smiles on their faces and coming back, and hopefully with the Delta variant swirling around, it's a respite for people to come out and do an outdoor activity that they love.
Yep.
But for us, we love it. I mean, you couldn't do a job like this if you didn't have the passion and drive to get out of bed at 4 a.m. and come into work every day. So,
well, it's an awesome spot too, because not only do you have a bunch of tasting rooms, right, but you also have a bakery,
right,
and then the tavern, right, which sells food, some great lunches. You've got some beautiful views. You know, it's really a cool spot to hang out.
Yeah, we've got 50 acres of pick your own, so one of the largest pick your own apples orchards in the country. And,
nice.
Like I said, we're adding some music and lots of just fun overall experiences, and we're always scheming on new hard ciders and different flavors to create. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, I hope that innovation carries over to cannabis. You're already doing it with CBD Seltzer, great product, the cold brew, but you know, I think the marketplace in cannabis is always going to be looking for something new, and that's Definitely. Where, you know, entrepreneurs such as yourself are going to be able to fill that need, whether it's new strains of flower or beverage products, edible products, all other finished goods that we don't even know of yet, or even curating this experience that a lot of people are going to be, you know, thriving for, right? You know, you think with cannabis, you know, now you could argue that you could get almost any product. You can get edibles, you can get flower. What you can't get is you can't get a place to consume, to hang out, and to enjoy yourself, enjoy the companies of others without feeling like you're going to get arrested. You know, now it's a little different, but, you know, that's really never been a thing. So that's really exciting, you know, for me, looking at, you know, what you guys have built here.
I think there's so much education we can do for consumers too within the category, because in order for New York to have a vibrant industry and to thrive, we really need to be educating the people that aren't consuming cannabis at this point, but maybe they're consuming other things that aren't great. So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Eddie. I mean, I really appreciate your time. Because,
Absolutely.
I mean, this fall it's ramping up, so you're going to be busy.
For sure. Well, we always love having you out here.
Yeah, and to any of our guests, you know, should stop by during the fall. Check them out on Instagram. Doing a lot of cool stuff. It's another episode of Empire State of Cannabis. You know, it's really New York's cannabis show with New Yorkers on. You know, I bring New Yorkers on, and myself and New Yorkers. So, you know, thank you to all of the continual listeners, the new listeners. The only way you know that a new episode's coming out is to follow us on social media, subscribe, and you know, that's on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms. And actually, we have some really exciting guests coming up, and we always do. But thank you for tuning in, listening, watching today.